This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Wahid Invest, revolutionizing halal investments. You know that feeling when you go into your pocket, one day you wear a jacket that you haven't worn in ages, and then you see a £10 note or a £20 note, or if you're real lucky, a £50 note. And then you're like, wow, this just feels amazing. I'm about to offer you guys that feeling on steroids. It's Wahid. Guys, Wahid Invest. It's the feeling of remembering you had some money in a pocket on steroids. That should be their caption. That should be their tagline rather than revolutionizing halal investments. Guys, listen. Investing in a halal way or investing in a halal company. Wahid, what is Wahid Invest? Wahid Invest is a website where you can basically go, they're the middleman. It's a platform. That's all it is. You're not investing in Wahid itself necessarily. This is a platform where they basically invest your money for you into into halal companies. What makes a company halal, you ask? The companies that they invest your money into do not have anything to do with riba. They don't have anything to do with alcohol, adult films, tobacco, gambling. Yeah. And on top of that, they not only have a financial screening to make sure that the money in the company is halal, but they also have a compliance screening to make sure that the decisions being made in the company, the contracts that the companies do are all halal. And they have a board of directors. Sorry, they have an Islamic board who check all of this, and I'm sure you guys are thinking, but I want to find out more. And so if you guys want to find out more, head over to freshlygrounded.com/Wahid. That's freshlygrounded.com/WAHED. So yeah, basically you can invest as little as £100. You put your money into Wahid Invest, and then they invest your money for you. And that's it. You don't have to do anything else. Wahid have helped companies. Wahid have helped people all over the world. Well, specifically in America originally, and now they're expanding across the world. But Wahid have helped people all over America invest their money in halal portfolios. And you can invest as little as £100 and you can get started now. Don't just let your money sit in savings. Invest it. Obviously, guys, make sure you check out the FAQs. Make sure you check out, I'm sure you guys are interested in finding out more about its compliance screenings and how it's halal and how it works and all that kind of stuff. So do head over to freshlygrounded.com/Wahid to find it out and find out more about it. Wahid Invest, revolutionizing halal investments. This episode of the podcast is with Joshua Dickens. Who is Joshua Dickens, you ask? Josh is a brother that I met in Cardiff many years ago when I first started practicing. I actually met him before, or I actually knew of him before I started practicing. I used to see him in a mosque in Cardiff, but I think I was a bit too shy to go up to him. And eventually I started practicing and I would see him in the mosque a lot. I eventually spoke to him and we became really, really good friends out in Cardiff. We haven't met in almost 4 years, and what you guys are about to witness is our meeting for the first time in 4 years. We catch up, we discuss Josh's revert story, how he became a Muslim at the age of 18, how he deals with having a non-Muslim family. We speak a tiny bit about marriage. We speak about his job working for the NHS. Very, very, very interesting, very, very inspiring to see a brother who took his shahada very early in his life and lives a very balanced life with his deen. How he balances being a Muslim but also having a non-Muslim family. And being in a non-Muslim environment a lot of the time, and how he maintains a good relationship with the people around him. Very, very interesting discussion with him. A lovely, lovely brother. Please do make him feel welcome by listening to him because he's very shy as well, but he has a lot of benefit to give. And I've shared a lot of good times with this brother, man. We used to study together at uni, and then we kind of split up. The last time I saw him, I wasn't even married. SubhanAllah, so much. I wasn't even working at Apple. So much has happened in the last 4 years, and we met. And he basically said, "Yo, listen, bro, I'm coming down to London. Would love to meet you." I was like, "We cannot have this happen without us meeting each other." And then last minute, I was like, "Yo, we have so much to catch up on. Your story is amazing. How about we catch up on mic on the podcast?" And he was like, originally he was like, "Oh, I don't know about that." And I managed to convince him. And so I bring to you Freshly Grounded episode 80 with Joshua Dickens, a very, very, very interesting episode. And we speak about a gym and a bunch of stuff. But without any further ado, we'll get into it. This is episode 80 of Freshly Grounded with Josh Dickens.
And welcome
to Freshly Grounded, the brand new podcast by best friends Faisu and Sam.
Huh?
I said welcome to Freshly Grounded,
No, after that bit.
the brand new podcast
And after that bit?
by best friends Faisu and Sam.
Really?
Hey Josh.
Walaikum salam.
I forgot how small your hands were.
Dissing me straight away.
No, I just forgot.
Man.
Bro, so let me just adjust the audio as I can.
Nothing but love from this guy, innit? First thing he says, he takes the mick out of me.
Bro, you know I've got mad love for you, man. Bro, so we haven't met since for about almost 4 years.
So I think it's 2018 now. I think it would have. When did you finish uni in Cardiff?
I think in 2012. No, 2015. I mean,
2015.
yeah,
so,
not 2012. The 2012 was when I started.
So yeah, it would be about 3 to 4 years now.
Yeah.
Because I remember probably the last time we like proper chilled. If you can remember this, it was me, you, Shahid.
Shahid,
Hassan,
yeah.
Zach as well, and we're all going to the SU because we were always doing like
library.
Yeah,
that's what we were doing.
Yeah, man.
We were studying. We were studying
Model
hard.
students.
Yeah. Bro, subhanAllah, so I don't even know where to begin, man.
Nah, it's too much of a backstory.
How did we meet?
So I think from what I can remember, obviously I was living in Cathays at the time. I was in my student place, and I remember I used to go pray in Dar es Salaam, wasn't it? And I remember I used to see you in there sometimes, like you said, for Jummah prayer, innit?
I used to be there for Jummah prayer, yeah. For the first like 2 years of uni, yeah.
Yeah. So I used to see you in there like every once in a while.
Yeah.
And I think one time I remember seeing you there in the morning for Fajr, I think it was.
That was probably around the shift. That was around shift.
But I remember when I saw you in there and I was thinking like, whoa, like this guy's like proper on it, innit?
Nah. You call me. So what happened? I'm just trying to adjust the audio at the same time so
that's cool. You do.
We can.
It's probably my Welsh voice and my Welsh.
Now, do you know what it is, bro? I'm
messing up with the audio. But
all right, I think we're good. Can you get a test from you, Josh?
Yeah. Do.
Okay, fine. No, what happened is, so as like everyone here who knows my story knows, is that when I started, so I lived 3 years at uni, and I lived like pretty much exactly halfway down the middle, 1.5 years like not practicing, and then alhamdulillah I started practicing in university, and so like the second 1.5 years I started practicing, and from the beginning, even though I wasn't practicing, I would still go to Jummah every Friday, because it was just like, it was more of a cultural thing, like you just know to go to Jummah every Friday.
Because that's quite interesting, because you know what, despite the fact that me and you've got a history, we've known each other for quite a while, I've never actually spoken to you about that transition.
No way.
Because if you remember, I just used to see you in the mosque a bit more. And I remember saying to you like, yo, we should like link up outside of the mosque. And that's when we started catching up, if you remember.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously we started chilling because we would go to the mosque and then we'd go to the student union and do work together and stuff. So that was like how me and you kind of came about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I never actually got your like transition story or anything.
That I'm gonna have to tell you off air.
Okay.
The deep like version of it, I'll tell you off air. But I will tell you today. I'll tell you today. But generally, man, like I started practicing, and the first thing is so interesting that you said that you started seeing that Fajr in the masjid, because I remember the day I decided I'm gonna start practicing. I remember it was actually evening, and I was sat in bed, and I thought, I can't live like this no more. Like I feel very unhappy. I've tried to find happiness everywhere, and so what I'm gonna do, I'm not gonna do anything crazy. I'm not gonna start like I was thinking to myself, I'm not gonna do anything that's like what a practicing person would do. Astaghfirullah, yeah.
So do you feel that there was like a moment?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting.
And what happened is, I decided, I said to myself, you know what I'm gonna do from this day onwards. I'm not going to do anything else, but I'm going to pray Fajr every morning. That's it.
Okay.
And so what I started doing is I woke up that next morning, and I woke up at this crazy hour, like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I walked to the bathroom, I made wudu, and I prayed Fajr in my bedroom, my university bedroom. And the university house I was living at the time was about a 1 minute walk max.
I think I met you there before once, wasn't it? Because if you remember, if you actually remember this, when you were moving back to London, I came to your house and we were unpacking some stuff.
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I remember. Because it was one of those places that was not far from the Tesco on Cathays Terrace, wasn't it?
Tesco and Cathays Terrace.
No. See, this is the thing. A couple of years outside of Wales and you can't remember anything.
No. You're thinking about my third year house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my second year house was a 1 minute walk from Darul Isra. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I started praying Fajr in the mornings at home. And then the next step was, you know what? I'm going to start going to the masjid for Fajr because it's only a 1 minute walk in it. And I kind of like waking up this early.
Yeah.
So I started going to the masjid at Fajr time. And that's when you started seeing me. And that was right at the beginning of you might have even seen me days into practicing. But I used to see you for about a good 2 years before then in the masjid on Fridays.
Yeah.
And I always used to subliminally, I used to look at you. I used to be like, wow, it's a white guy.
Who is this white guy?
I used to think it's this white guy in the mosque. And I think I wasn't used to it because I didn't used to hit mosques that regularly, obviously, in London because I wasn't really practicing. So when I did hit mosques, it would be like Pakistani mosques.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like very cultural. So it's so weird to see a white person in the mosque for me at that time. So I would always see you in the mosque. And I think, wow, like, I kind of want to be like this guy because you just seem quite cool. Like this
thank
guy,
you. I appreciate
it. Because I always had a perception of people who are practicing or people who are spending a lot of time in mosques as people who were boring, like rough looking, like not cool and stuff. And I would see that you would like have your gym bag with you and you'd be wearing your football jersey and you'd kind of go to the masjid and then you'd run off to the gym. And I started clocking you once, twice, I think, an easy gym because obviously Cardiff's so small. You see people like more than once. Yeah. I started thinking, wow, like this guy's a normal guy. Like he goes to the gym, he studies at uni, like, but I'm just always seeing him in the masjid. And so I think that when I built some confidence with the Deen, I must have come up to you in the masjid one time and I spoke to you.
Yeah, I remember.
And yeah, man, we kicked it off and then we started going library together and stuff. And I was like, wow, this guy's so cool. Yeah,
I remember the transition because I remember seeing you just every once in a while to seeing you quite frequently. Because at the time, obviously, I was living so close to Dar Isra that I was going there pretty much 2 to 3 times a day just because it was always so close. Right. And I remember just routinely seeing you on a Friday. Yeah. Then occasionally it was like seeing you at perhaps one of the 2 prayers in a day as well. And I remember when I saw you that time of Fajr, I was like, oh no, something's happened. Oh no, I was like, yo, this guy must be like pretty serious. But it's interesting you say because that must have been like what you said was the transition.
Yeah. So I wasn't serious, but do you know what I found a lot of love in that masjid? Because do you know the imam who used to lead Fajr there in that mosque?
Man, I'm not gonna lie. 5 a.m. in the morning. I'm not clinically alive at 5 a.m. in the morning.
His name was Mushtaq, and he was the Pakistani uncle, big white beard, and like very tall. Yeah. So he started showing me love, bro. Like he used to like treat me like really nice. And I remember one time he was like my perception of imams was just like strict people who hit people when they read Quran. And this uncle, like obviously he was an imam, yeah. But I always obviously just saw him as an uncle, like a Pakistani uncle. And he come up to me one time and he was like, after Fajr, he was like, oh, what you doing now? Do you want to come have breakfast at my house? Obviously, that sounds weird, but you got to bear in mind that like I had been praying Fajr for so long, so he got to know me and I got to know him a bit. And he basically invited me to come have breakfast with his family at his house. And I was like, wow, like, why is he so nice for no reason? And he obviously must have clocked, wow, this kid, because I think at the time I must have had some outward sins on me as well that like perhaps he clocked. So he must have thought, look, this kid is obviously coming closer to Allah. Yeah. And so let me like be nice to him. And I declined it because I was just like, oh, that's really nice.
You're probably not used to that.
Yeah, because I was not used to it.
You're probably not used to that kind of gesture.
I must have said like I'm eating, which probably sounds so weird at 5 o'clock in the morning because no one eats before 5 a.m. But yeah, bro, so that's how we met. We met in the masjid, which is such a beautiful place to meet. And then we obviously we started studying together and stuff. Yeah, man. So obviously, typically, I think it went from just catching up in the mosque, wasn't it, initially? And then I remember actually saying to you, like, yo, we should catch up outside of the mosque because I was seeing you so often. And I can't remember what the first thing is we did, but I'm fairly certain we just both obviously realised that we had like so much in common and assignments to do and stuff. I remember going to because they had the ice hockey house in Cardiff, if you remember as well. Cardiff ice hockey boys as well. I don't remember. I was never involved in the ice. That's what I mean. Because I used to think you were with that crowd. See, I used to think you were with that crowd, and then I think that's what for me when I got to know you a bit more and I realized that because that's what I mean is when I was seeing you in the mosque and I was seeing you like go to quite a few of the prayers and I was seeing you in the morning praying Fajr and stuff like that. That's why I thought like I was like, oh, he's probably one of like those guys because obviously they're pretty on it, and I thought that was you as well. Yeah, because you weren't in the ice hockey, were you? No, I wasn't. No. To be honest with you, man, as you know, and probably everyone will find out, like I'm pretty shy. So the idea of doing anything like big, I can't believe you got me on this. To be honest, yeah, I dragged you on a podcast. He's pretty much dragged me. I came to London for the day, and I just ended up being dragged into this. So I literally had no idea. I'm not gonna even lie. Bro, yeah, so alright, so there's so many things I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about your studies and what you do now for work because I think it's so interesting and I think that you could give a lot of benefit to people listening. Okay. Because the stuff that you do is long-term life-saving, really, especially if a person was to implement the knowledge that you have in their daily routine with regards to diet and stuff like that. But before we go into what you do now and what you studied, I think it would be amazing to talk about your revert story.
I knew this was coming. I knew this was coming.
Well, because your revert story kind of directly affects what you do now. Kind of.
I guess, yeah. Okay, yeah, it's quite true.
Well, then, yeah, kind of. And also, your story is very interesting just because it's so dramatic in ways. Why? Because it's to do with your health, right?
Well, partially, I guess,
right.
in a way.
So let's get into it.
Okay, so I don't really know where to start. To be honest, it's quite difficult because I think, especially when a lot of people, not so much anymore, I think, because obviously being in Cardiff pretty much for the past few years or whatever, and I think being a regular face in some of the mosques that I normally go to, I don't tend to get anybody that sees me anymore that's like, oh, like, I want to know your background, I want to know your story, because a lot of people already know me now. But I think when I first became Muslim, and I think I repeated that story like a million times, because every time someone would see me, they'd be like, oh, this guy is like a new face, we don't know who he is, he looks fairly fair skinned, so he doesn't look like he's Arab or Asian or anything.
You look like a typical Cardiff boy.
Typical.
Yeah, you do. Like, it's like what?
Pink shirts and a skin fade, right? All I need is a pair of Vans.
Yeah, I'm sure you have them somewhere in the cupboard.
100%. No, I think so. So for me, so it started around about the age of 18.
Okay.
So I'm 25 now. I look a bit older than I am. But yeah, so it started when I was about 18, and I think so. My best friend was Libyan. Still is my best friend. He's Libyan, and obviously he's Muslim. And that was kind of my first exposure to Islam or religion in general, to be honest with you, because I wasn't brought up in a religious family. My family are pretty chilled, they're relaxed, like, you know, you can do what you want, they're not really too fussed. And I think for me, like at the time, I was kind of, the only exposure that I had to Islam was my brother. Sorry, not my brother, my best mate. And like, obviously, as you can remember, this guy was my best mate for years, by the way. So I've known him since pretty much day one, right? So when you think of all the things you see in the media about Muslims, how Muslims are portrayed, you see all these attacks and stuff like this. I think I was always quite perplexed by the idea that, you know, this is how people view Muslims and this is what people say Muslims are like. But then I've also got my best mate. I knew his family as well. And I was thinking, well, you know, he's Muslim and he's not like this. So I always had that open-mindedness in terms of the fact that, like, what perhaps I was exposed to, I didn't accept as, like, that's what a typical Muslim is like. Do you see what I mean? Like, I think for me, yeah, that exposure was always there. So I always knew a little bit about Islam, right? But to be truthfully honest, back in the day, you know, subhanAllah, I feel bad for it. But, like, looking back on when we were in high school, so I became Muslim right before starting university. So I literally, right before going to uni is when I became Muslim, right? But when I was in college and when I was, you know, sixth form and all that sort of stuff, like, I just remember when he used to come into school and, like, I can't remember what time of year it would have been, but he was obviously fasting Ramadan, right? And I remember literally just, like, him being like, nah, bro, I'm not eating. I'd be like, yo, you know you want some of this baguette, don't you? Yeah. Like, you know you want some of this food. And I used to taunt him, like, as a joke, obviously, as banter and stuff. But I never had a true understanding of perhaps why he was doing it and those sorts of things. Now, the thing for me, right, is I had that, like, perception of, you know, I think I was a typical 18-year-old kid. I didn't have insight as to kind of what I was doing, where I was going. I don't think it was that much of a priority for me because you know how you're like at 18 years old. You're invincible, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? You don't think that there's a finite time you're here. You don't think about the future too much. Obviously, you have a rough idea of where you're going, but so many people take things for granted. Do you see what I mean? Like, in terms of the fact that, you know, when I'm 30, I want to have 2 kids and a wife and I want to have a car and this, that and the other. And you have these ideas, but who says you're going to make it to that age anyway? Do you see what I mean? And I think, like you were saying, mentioning with the health issue, like, it wasn't actually that much of a significant health issue looking back on it. It was just one of those things that I think the symptoms were quite worrying. And I think it was purely because I was your typical 18-year-old boy. I Googled my symptoms. Yeah. And as you know, when you Google your symptoms, like, you're what? Like, on your last legs when you Google your symptoms? You're pretty much, like, going to die, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? So you Google headache, symptoms, but you Google headache and you've got a brain tumor. Do you know what I mean?
It's true.
But, like, obviously I got seen by the doctors and everything, and they all said everything was okay. But alhamdulillah, but the time was quite stressful because obviously, like, you know, they did refer me to, like, a specialist at the time because, like, the GP was a bit confused as to why these symptoms were happening. But, like, I think obviously when the specialist saw me, he said, like, they did scans and everything, and they said everything's all good. I think, alhamdulillah, it was good, but it was a bit of a wake-up call for me, because I think that's when I started to realize, like, I'm not invincible. Do you know what I mean? It sounds a bit dramatic looking back on it, because obviously, like, the health scare wasn't anything major. Like, it's not like I had a major health complication.
No, but it sounds like it triggered your thought of death.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you know what, realistically, if I have never experienced something where my health is, being a bit,
alhamdulillah,
like,
that's a good thing.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, so far. And therefore, now that I am experiencing it, it's just made me think about
I think we're getting older now, aren't we? Do you know what I mean?
Now it's different, yeah.
Now we got bad backs, I get headaches all the time. If I don't wear my reading glasses, I get a headache. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's just...
So it basically triggered the thought of death in your head, basically.
Yeah, essentially. Like, it sounds a bit deep, but like, I just think it played on my mind a bit, and I think I was a bit more conscious of perhaps what I was doing, where I was going, and what my priorities were. And I think what happened from then on is, obviously, like I said, I had that exposure about Islam through my best mate, and like I said, I wasn't from a religious family. I wasn't a religious person. I did go to like what they call a church in Wales high school, so it's like a Christian school, but like, it wasn't like a particularly that much of a religious school, and not many people that went there were particularly that religious either.
You have to like sing hymns and stuff.
No, so that's the thing. It wasn't like that. Okay. It wasn't like that at all. It was just under church in Wales. So, so obviously I had some exposure to religion in some aspect or another, but my exposure to like Islam, other than what I was getting through my best mate, was just your typical RE lessons. Do you know when they show you that picture of like the moon, the crescent moon, and then they say like Muslims have like the 5 pillars, and they give you that information, but that's about all your exposure is, right? So I found, obviously, after having that issue, I started to think a bit more about perhaps what I was doing. And I think subconsciously I always had faith in God. I always had like this idea that, I believed in God. But I guess you could say I felt more under like the perhaps the Christianity concept of God at that point.
Fine. But
I wasn't religious in any way, shape or form. So I wasn't a practicing Christian or anything like that, but I did believe in God. Do you see what I mean? And I think because I had that faith, that's what made me start to think a bit more, perhaps when I saw my best mate, who was Muslim as well. And like, when we were chilling with the boys, when he was like, oh, I need to go pray, or like, when it was Ramadan, he was fasting, I just started asking questions. I was like, but why? Like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? I wanted to get an understanding. It was like typical curiosity. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't for anything in particular. And I just found that every time he was giving me answers, I was kind of like, oh, okay, like I can see. Sense. Yeah, and I think, to be honest with you as well, I can only speak from my perspective, but I think a lot of people have like perhaps a certain perception of what would be Islamic. Do you see what I mean? Like, I would say, despite being very good friends with a Muslim at the time, and obviously growing up in Cardiff, I grew up in quite a multicultural area, so I was exposed to a lot of Muslims, and I knew a lot of Muslims as well. But like, there was still so many things that I thought were Islamic that weren't. Like, as an example, like forced marriages.
Okay.
Like, I remember, it's quite funny, when I became Muslim, the first thing I said to one of the sheikhs was like, does this mean like I have to marry someone that you suggest for me? And he was like, yeah, what are you on about? Like, he was like, what are you on about? I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't have much of an, like, do you get what I mean? So the perceptions that people have. Do you remember what sheikh that was? Ali Hamuda.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he probably won't even remember if I told him again, but he laughed at the time. So, yeah, it's just one of those things. I think you have certain concepts of perhaps what is normal, like, right. But I think when you get a bit of a better understanding of religion, you start to understand that perhaps certain elements of culture do get mixed in, and that's very true, especially when it comes to Islam. I feel that the more I'm exposed and the more I learn, the more I realize that actually there's quite a lot of culture, especially different types of communities obviously have their different influences, but I think there's definitely like certain practices that I thought were Islamic, but then after getting more knowledge as I progressed, started to realize actually this is more of a cultural thing and it's not Islamic. Do you see what I mean? And I found that was typical of perhaps a lot of the things that I thought were problematic with Islam to me. Like, for example, like I said, with the forced marriages, trying to think of other examples, but like there were just certain things that perhaps I wasn't that keen on, but I thought were part of the religion, but then turned out they weren't. Do you see what I mean? And I think, like, obviously, for me, at that point, I started to just get a bit of a better understanding of perhaps what the religion was. And I remember actually at the time started speaking to perhaps some people of knowledge, some people who knew certain things. And I think the answers they were giving me, I started to just get a bit of a better kind of understanding of perhaps what they were saying, and I also agreed with what they were saying as well. And I think that was perhaps the biggest thing for me, is like when people are, you know, giving you this information and you're agreeing with it, you start to think, well, hang on a second, if you're telling me this and I'm understanding it, then, you know, do I need to look into this a bit more? Do you see what I mean?
When you started questioning about Islam, like, just to kind of clarify, after the issue with your health that made you think more about why you're here, and then you started questioning Islam, were you Muslim at that point?
No.
Okay, so you started questioning people about Islam. You started doing your own research.
Yeah, exactly that.
And so, what led from that to you to take your shahada? And what was the kind of the time difference?
So the time difference is relatively quite short. I would say it's probably a couple of months, I think.
Okay.
So I mean, I became Muslim. It's quite funny actually. I became Muslim like 2 weeks before Ramadan.
Oh really?
Yeah,
I remember you telling me.
Yeah. It's like 2 weeks before Ramadan. I had no idea.
Did you fast?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. To be honest with you, the one thing that I'll say about me as a person, it's not necessarily a good quality, but I'm very, very stubborn. Like if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Like no one can tell me otherwise. And I think like, obviously when I became Muslim, people were like, oh, you don't necessarily need to fast. It's your first year. And I was like, no, if I'm going to do it, like I'm going to do it. Do you know what I mean? So I think, so the transition period really was just, I started to ask more information. My best mate, his dad, he was giving me a lot of information as well, and he was sitting down and talking to me, and I just, like I said, I found that it started to make a bit more sense, and then I noticed that I started to get this kind of inclination to start doing things, perhaps like, so for example, I cut out pork at that point.
Oh, okay.
But I wasn't Muslim.
Right.
I wasn't Muslim.
Okay.
So I started cutting out pork just because I felt bad for eating pork. But I don't know why I felt bad for eating pork. Do you see what I mean? Started only going to halal places. Like I remember legit, like when I was when I was in college and we were going for food with a couple of the boys, and I remember like it wasn't a halal place and I ordered fish.
No way.
No offense to the Bengali brothers out there, but I hate fish, man. I hate fish. I can't stand it.
You don't like fish?
No. So I am...
So you clocked yourself doing these things. You're thinking, hold on a second. Why am I ordering fish, but I have no reason to not eat the meat?
Yeah, exactly. But like I felt this inclination to not do it because I felt like I shouldn't.
Wow.
Do you see what I mean?
You know, at that time it was because you were more interested in Islam.
And this is the thing though, right? So I remember I went to the mosque. So actually this is the most interesting part of the story. So when, obviously, like I said, I had this interest, there was, so in the gym that I was going to at the time, there was this Algerian guy, right? Really, really lovely guy. But I knew he was Muslim, man. The guy had like a sick beard, mashallah, really? Right? Sick beard. And like, I just knew he was Muslim, and I was speaking to him sometimes. And I remember that there was this mutual guy that we spoke to, right? That was in the gym. And obviously, I'm not going to say his name or anything. I don't want to expose the guy for the stuff that he's doing. Hopefully, you know, inshallah, he's a bit more practicing now. But I remember him speaking about going to Jummah, right? To this Algerian brother.
Okay.
But I actually remember him before speaking to the Algerian brother, because he came over to join our conversation. He was talking about going to town last weekend. Okay. And getting a bit smashed.
On the Raz and the Raz.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember just thinking, hang on a second, I'm not exactly a sheikh, right? But I know that...
It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. So when he walked off, obviously I didn't say to the Algerian guy that it was him specifically, but I was like, yo, I have a question. I was like, so alcohol's haram, right? And he was like, yo, like, you know the words. He was like, haram? How do you know that? And he was like, so do you know a bit about Islam? I was like, well, you know, I'm interested in it because obviously I had that exposure through my best mate. I was getting to know a bit more about Islam just through like my own reading and stuff. And I said to him like, yeah, actually I'm quite interested. Like, you know, just through a curiosity point of view. Remember at this point in time, I had no, like, I didn't have an intent to convert or anything. It was
and you were only 18, which is so young.
Yeah. I just had interest in it because I was always, one of the things, alhamdulillah, my mum was really good for when she raised me was being very, very open-minded. Like my mum is very, very relaxed on all fronts. And I think that transcended into me being very relaxed as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm not like, you know, I'm quite a relaxed person. I mean, you know me, man. So I'm always chilled out.
I said to Omar before you got here, I said, when you meet Josh, like, you're going to find it weird because we're in London and you just, not that people in London are horrible, but but there's a massive difference in like the people in Cardiff and or people outside London and people inside London. Just as we discussed earlier, you were saying that you opened the door for someone and they kind of looked at you like really weird.
Yeah, looked at me with a blank look, like, why are you opening the door for me?
Yeah, whereas in Cardiff, like you're just speaking to strangers like normally as if you know.
Yeah, man, a random chat with an old guy on the bus stop was like a standard Monday morning thing on the way to work. But
right.
But here, everyone's got their headphones in, heads down.
Yeah, so I
said, that I'm dissing London, by the way, because I love London.
I said to Omar, I said, when Josh comes in here, you might be startled by how friendly he is. Because you're not used to like that level of friendliness. And there's something about the Welsh accent.
Valleys, man.
There's something about the Welsh accent that's a bit friendly as well, I think.
Would you say I've got a Welsh accent?
Definitely. Come on, bro. You got Cardiff accent, yeah, definitely.
Cardiff. Yeah, that's Cardiff, isn't it?
Yeah, you got Cardiff accent.
Yeah, I don't know, because it's funny. Because
definitely not from the valleys,
but this is the thing, though, right? So the place that I work is in the valley. Sorry, we're going a bit off topic. I'll come back to it now.
This is a podcast.
But the place that I work in the valleys, right, is like proper Welsh, right? So everyone's like, "Are you bat? I was going," right? Yeah. So this is like proper valleys. So when I go to work, like everyone there who's like really Welsh, they're always like, "Yo, you sound like you're English." But that's just because like my accent is so diluted. I don't have a proper Welsh accent. But then when I cross the border and I come to England, everyone's like, "Yo, you're not from around here, are you?"
Yeah, you could tell straight away.
Do you know what I mean? So it's quite strange that people can tell that difference. Yeah. But anyway, sorry, just to come back to the earlier story. So like I said, I spoke to him and I said to him about like, the guy drinking alcohol or whatever. Obviously I didn't say the brother specifically, but I just asked him the question about like, is it haram or whatever? And he said to me like, he said, you should come to the mosque sometime.
Right.
And I was kind of, to be truthfully honest, I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit like, whoa, like, nah, like that's a bit too much for me. Because like I said, my concept of the mosque was seeing loads of scary looking elders with huge beards walking in to the mosque by my house, and they all look really unfriendly, no offense, but like, you know what I mean? It was like, nah, I'm not really that keen on that. I felt a bit uncomfortable. But I saw him in the gym a couple of times after that, and I remember one day he said to me like, "Are you sure you don't want to come?" I just thought, I got no plans tonight. I'll just go, like I'll go and see what it's about. And subhanAllah, right? So I went in
that night after the gym.
Yeah. Wow. So I went home. I showered because he was like, "Go home and shower first, and I'll come pick you up." Because he lived not far from me. So I went home, showered. What I didn't know at the time that his wife was a white reaver as well.
Oh really?
Yeah. So he said, "Go home, shower. I'll come pick you up." So he came to my house a bit later. Obviously, I didn't know at the time, but it was like around Isha time, right? So he picked me up, drove me to the mosque, and he just grabbed a seat for me at the back, sat me down, and then obviously they were doing the call to prayer. At this point, obviously, I had no idea what was going on. I was like, "Yo, why is this guy singing in Arabic, man?" I had no idea, right? Yeah. So yeah, I just remember that every person that came in, took their shoes off, looked at me, and said, "Hiya, mate," and then shook my hand, and then went to pray. Yeah. And I remember just thinking like, actually everyone's really friendly. Like, I don't know what I was expecting, but I was quite shocked. I was like, everyone's really friendly. This is quite nice. And then I remember the imam afterwards was just like, so obviously the guy introduced me to the imam, and he was like, "Why don't you just sit down and have a chat?" And like, to be honest with you, in my head, I was kind of like, yeah, I'll sit down. But like, don't expect me to like convert or anything. Like, I'm just here for like curiosity. I want to get some more information. Like, I'm not here to like become Muslim or anything like that. And I remember sitting down with him for ages. And this is where a lot of the myths got dispelled for me. So where I was like, what about this? Or like, I don't agree with this. What about this? And like, I don't agree with this thing. I don't agree with this thing. Like some of the controversial things that usually come up when you Google Islam. Do you know what I mean? Like, where it's like, killing non-Muslims, all this stuff. I was like, what is all this? Like, I was like, I don't agree with any of this. And I've done a bit of Googling. Man, when I said I did a bit of Googling, the guy just laughed. Straight up, he just laughed at me. He was like, "Oh, God, here we go." It's kind of similar to how we were talking about earlier when you Google your symptoms. Like, all this information comes up.
It's true.
You need to know how to filter it. And I just got, like, a lot of the myths were dispelled for me. And, like, he basically said to me, "Name every problem you have, and I will counteract that problem and tell you what we actually believe." Right. So I was in there for about 2 hours, bro. Literally.
No way.
Yeah. I taught him everything. Yeah, I taught him everything, right? I said, like, I'm not happy with this, I'm not happy with this. And he just kind of counteracted it. And to be fair, mashallah, the brother was really liberal. He was really nice. He was really relaxed. And obviously, as you know, I'm quite liberal myself. So right. I responded to that. I think if he was a bit more conservative, he was like, this is this, I perhaps wouldn't have responded. And he gave me all this information, and it was quite funny at the end. So he was like, "Listen, I've answered all your problems. You're happy with my answers. Why are you not Muslim?" And I was just sat there and I looked at him blankly and I was like, yo, nah, like, no, I can't do this. Because I was just like, yo, like, because I didn't have a full understanding of Islam. I didn't really know much. And obviously, I appreciate the guy for his time. And he had given me all this information. And obviously, I agreed with all the information he was telling me. But I was still a bit like, oh, like, no, I'm not ready for this. So I just kind of said, like, look, I really, really appreciate your time. But I'm not quite ready for this yet. And he was like, that's fine. He was like, just, go home, take your time. And just come back whenever. So I remember going home. And there was this, like, it's weird, it's hard to describe, but there was this like really like strong feeling of like, I knew I needed to take Shahada to be Muslim, right? I knew that at the time. And I was like, what if I died now? Like this exact second, like I wouldn't be Muslim. And if I believe in Islam, then I would believe, you need to be Muslim, you need to take Shahada, etc., etc. And I was so like, I become so perplexed by that. I was so like I had this such a strong inclination. And I remember literally the next day, the next day I went to the mosque and I said to the guy, I was like, look, I think, I'm not 100% certain, but I think I'm interested and I think that it could be something for me, but I just kind of want to have this discussion with you. And within 45 minutes, I took Shahada and I was just sat there. And I remember, right, I took Shahada. There was, bro, the adrenaline. I was shaking, literally, right? And we took Shahada, I sat there, and I remember just sat there, like everyone left the room and I sat there and I was like, what just happened?
So how many people did you take Shahada in front of?
So obviously the Imam was there, but there was like 2 or 3 guys that were there because it was around the hard time, right? So there was 2 or 3 guys that were there, and like I think when they saw me in there, they were just interested to see kind of like what I was there for and how they could help out or whatever. And actually, I'm really sorry, I can't remember the guy's name, but he actually, when I became Muslim, stayed back for like an hour and a half and just told me about like prayers and how to do them. And I remember just given this book of like Arabic words and I was just like, I don't even know what I'm doing with this. This is going to be difficult. It didn't take that long to learn, actually. I think because, I think when you're reciting it 5 times a day consistently, you pick it up quite quickly. But yeah, it was weird. The whole transition was quite quick, like I said, obviously, from the moment of starting to ask my best mate a bit more about religion to then eventually being in the mosque and taking a Shahada. It was we're talking a period of perhaps 2 to 3 months. It wasn't that long, but obviously bearing in mind during that 2 to 3 month period, I was doing a lot of reading. I was watching a lot of YouTube videos. People like Abdurrahman Murphy, Suhaib Webb was another one as well. Numan Ali Khan was another one. So I was watching these guys, and I just think I'm one of those people. I'm very, very, very relaxed, as you know. I'm very, very liberal, very, very chilled. So I think I really responded because I think when I first started Googling, and I think obviously it's nothing against my best mate's dad, but when he was giving me videos of like really odd videos from Islam channel. Do you know what I mean? Right. Of like these 65, 70
it just doesn't feel
guys.
relatable, right?
Yeah. It was hard to relate to. And I think I was like, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily disliking the content that I'm listening to, but I find it hard to relate because let's be real, man. Like a lot of the times when you're first interested in Islam, you see it as a religion that's typically followed by, you see a lot of Asians, Arabs, and you don't tend to see that many white guys. That's why you're kind of like, what? But I think that's why people like Abdurrahman Murphy or like Suhaib Webb, that's why they were such a good gateway for me, because I was like, this guy's quite similar to me. Do you see what I mean? Like I was looking at this white guy. I know obviously Abdurrahman Murphy is not a revert or whatever, but like you're seeing these guys and they're relatable.
That's what I found so interesting, because I remember it's crazy because there's another thing I want to talk about, which is that concept of the fact that you've actually been a Muslim now for 7 years.
Yeah, 7.
And I've actually only been practicing for 5, coming to 5 now. So you've been Muslim for longer than I've like been serious Muslim, right? And so I remember when I started practicing, you actually kind of took me under your wing, and I remember you brought me. You told me about Abdurrahman Murphy.
Yeah.
And I started watching his videos, and just like you, for me, it was an amazing gateway, because I came across this guy who was so chilled and would talk about Islam, but he would talk about love and the love that Aisha radiallahu anha had for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and vice versa. And he would act it out, and he'd like be saying to Sheikh next to him, and he'd be like,
I think there was that one video I linked to that was really funny. I can't remember the title of it, but he was talking about.
And then the one thing I was surprised about is, to me, at that point, it was already quite surprising that someone was a white practicing Muslim, right? But what really took me by surprise was the fact that he was born Muslim, and it was actually his parents who reverted. And I was like, wow, that's amazing.
I think if I'm not mistaken, I think his mum's Egyptian, if we're talking about Abdurrahman.
Okay, right. And his dad reverted?
He
did say that he has...
I believe so, yeah.
He either said he had revert parents or one of his parents is a revert.
I believe so, yeah.
Definitely at least one of his parents is a revert. And it gets me thinking about now, because we're now living in a time where when you see a white Muslim, it's still more often than not, when you see them, you're like, oh, so like, what's your revert story?
It's weird because I think obviously being a white Muslim now, I think obviously Cardiff is quite a small place, and I think obviously there doesn't tend to be, I mean, there's quite a few white Muslims. I can definitely think of a few from the top of my head that I've met. A lot of them quite young as well, which is really interesting. But it's quite funny because when you go to London, like when I speak to some of my friends who are from London, they're like, yo, white reverts, like it's a standard. Just go to a mosque, there's loads of them.
It would have been amazing for you to meet Sam here, because obviously, well, not just because he's
I think I've watched quite a lot of your podcasts and a lot of your Instagram posts and stuff, so I've seen a lot of these guys, and I've always thought like it'd be really, subhanAllah, we should have arranged that actually.
Yeah, because you know, because
to be fair, I did just drop him a line like really quickly to say like, hey, I'm in London, because by the way, it's been 3 years
since we've met,
since we've seen each other, and I
was like, let's have a podcast.
yo, you need to say the story about perhaps why, like what kind of initially started it, because
we're going to that.
Yeah.
Well, so first of all, just to finish off this discussion, because I have so many questions about your shahada as well. But what I was going to say is that we're now going into a kind of age where you're seeing white Muslims, and it's no longer that they are reverts, but alhamdulillah, like they're just born Muslim. And so like even you yourself, like when you have children,
but I think one of the most beautiful things, I think, especially when you look at places like the UK, is that because we have such ethnic diversity, is like, man, I love it when you meet someone, you're like, so where are you from? And they're like, oh, my mum's Egyptian, my dad's Pakistani, my grandmother's like Somali or something. I'm like, yo, your mix is so cool.
Amazing.
Like, I love that, man. I think it's so cool.
Even the other way around, like for example, Sam, who presents his podcast as well, his two boys, mashallah, they're like, their mom's British, their dad's British, and you can see these two baby boys, they're white English British baby boys who have all of their British culture. Sam loves his British culture and stuff, but they're born.
Yeah, man, that's the thing.
Yeah,
I'm British through and through.
Right.
That's why when people are like, oh man, so do you go out for like biryani and stuff?
Exactly.
I'm like, nah, man, hot dogs and burgers all
You're
day.
You're like the most Welsh person I know.
Bro, Domino's, Nando's, the 4X, man. You can't get any more.
And that's
like
really cool, man, because that's how it should be, man. Because Islam is like a way of life, but it's not saying, oh, you have to eat biryani now. That makes no sense, bro. Okay, cool. So yeah, let's talk about that. So we were discussing. We were going off on a tangent about
sorry.
How we started.
Apologies, I think we've gone off on massive tangents.
It's cool, man.
Way through this.
Well, so when you took your shahada, how long did it take for you to take your shahada and then for you to actually be praying 5 times a day and to learn the salah? Because even your Arabic tongue now, people will probably notice that it sounds like a normal. Like I
don't know. The people who probably speak good Arabic are probably thinking. I think for me,
your Arabic tongue is great, bro.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
It's so good. I think it's because for me, I think perhaps one of the things I find quite, I guess, is quite not sad, but like one of the things that becomes quite challenging. I think a lot of people, perhaps young reverts as well, as they get older, they'll probably experience the same thing. But I think, perhaps when you're 18, 19, you're a student, you have a lot more spare time. I think I was a lot more proactive perhaps when I was 18, 19, 20 and learning Arabic and tajweed and all the things that come in between. I think one of the things is perhaps now that I'm working full time and, you get a bit tired. And I think if anything, it's more of a reflective thing for myself in terms of the fact that I do need to start picking up a bit more and get a bit better from that point of view. Because I think, alhamdulillah, my Arabic is okay, but I could improve. Like you always think to yourself, I think one of the things I find perhaps most significant, especially when you work in, like, for example, if you work in the health service and you see people on a day-to-day basis and you see people perhaps who are unwell or people who are going through tough times, and you start to realize, like, at the moment, alhamdulillah, like, I've got a stable job, I'm pretty comfortable, my health is good, like, why am I not taking advantage? It reminds me of that hadith, isn't it? I'm not gonna quote it just in case I misquote, but like when you talk about take advantage of your youth before old age. Yeah. Like,
5 before, I can't remember.
Yeah, but it's like, it's really important to take advantage of the time that you have, isn't it? Because because, you know, obviously, alhamdulillah, I'm young, I'm fit, I'm healthy, there's no issues, and this is the time where I should be most proactive. And that's a reflective thing for me, I think, and hopefully other people, perhaps if you're listening to this, you feel the same way as well, is that, you know, there's no better time than the present. I think actually recently, I remember I was going through my drawers to clean up, and in my bedroom, and I found the do you know we've got that book where it's like a hadith a day? I can't remember the author. It's like a little green book, and it's got Arabic writing on the front, and it's like daily. So you have like day 1 to day 365, right? And each day is like a new hadith to read. Yeah, and I got that book out, and I was like, man, I remember the days where I used to pick this up and read it from start to finish in one go.
Wow.
So now what I've done is I've actually put it on my desk in my room, and I'm just like, every morning I wake up, I turn over, I read it, and I just try to take some kind of learning from that.
Wow.
But it's always about just consistently, like, remembering, isn't it? Like, obviously, I think every single person in a war can always do a bit better than what they're doing. There's always room for improvement. So I think just as long as you acknowledge that room for improvement, you're being proactive, then I think it's a positive, isn't it?
Of course.
Do you know what I mean? So,
guys, just before we carry on going into the podcast, I'd love to let you guys know about our sponsors at Wahid. I know that sometimes, you know, it can be frustrating listening to sponsorships and listening to sponsors and adverts on the podcast. But in order for us to, you know, keep Freshly Grounded going and maintain it, and to keep pushing out great content for free, we do have to be able to. Oh no, the camera's gone off during the advert. Okay, we're back. As I was saying, we do have to keep Freshly Grounded running. Without any further ado, this podcast is brought to you by Wahid Invest. Guys, Wahid allows you, as you guys know, to invest your money into halal companies. They do compliance screenings, they do financial screenings, and you can invest as little as £100. Just head over to freshlygrounded.com/Wahid. Invest your money. They make sure that your money goes into companies that are that have gone through their Islamic compliance screenings, which means that they're not companies that deal with alcohol, tobacco, adult films, or anything like that. You're going to clean halal companies, and you watch your money grow. It's a long-term investment plan, and yeah, you can essentially just put a bit of money in every month or whenever you want, and then you can just forget about it. So, and then you can check back one day when you're retired, and you can see that you have a whole bunch of assets and money that you can take out. So do check it out at freshlygrounded.com/Wahid. Let's get back into the episode. So I guess it makes sense for us to now talk about what you just mentioned earlier, which was about how the story, or basically how this whole thing started.
Oh, yeah.
Because when we obviously met, or not even when we met, the whole time we knew each other, I was never on YouTube. I didn't have a podcast.
No. So I remember obviously me and Faiz, you know, at that time we got quite close, didn't we? Because we were chilling probably like 3-4 times a week, and we were staying in the student union till like 1-2 a.m. every night. If you remember, we'd go grab some food like proper late, me, you and the boys, and we would chill, because we were always doing deadlines last minute, because you know how it is, man. Uni students, we're so organized. And yeah, I just remember that, you know, obviously we got quite close over a short period of time, because it was weird, because despite the fact that, you know, we'd only kind of started chilling like 2-3 months before that point, like we chilled quite a lot in a short space of time. And I think it was that mutual, like we were so similar, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I think definitely. We got along really well. Do you know when like you just meet someone and you have like an instant affinity to them? Like you're just like I like this person and I want them to be around me a bit more. Because you know when you've got good people around you, do you know what I mean? Like sometimes, like not in a rude way, but sometimes you meet somebody and you just think, I don't know if this person would be a good influence on me.
You just get a vibe with people sometimes. I think that's normal.
Yeah, it's not to be disrespectful towards anyone in particular, but like sometimes you just know certain people are good to have around you and certain people perhaps not so much. And I think with you, I instantly felt like you were a good person to have around me. Likewise, but anyway, man, off on the tangent, talking about the initial story. So before we started this podcast, actually, I was speaking to Faiz about like the story. I don't think you fully remembered it, do you?
I didn't,
like,
and then
it's still in my head. So essentially, it was one really, really, really late night in the SU. We were walking back through Cathays.
That's how all good stories start.
Yeah.
One really late night.
Really late night. Yeah. So we're walking back through Cathays, and I remember we stopped outside that WeWo place, so the noodle bar, right? Obviously it was shut because it was like 1:30 in the morning. Crazy like that, innit? Yeah. And I remember because you'd mentioned a couple of times like, oh, I've been quite interested in doing a bit more things on social media, right? And I remember saying to you, like, you should go for it. Like, just go for it. Because you're quite creative, for sure, man. I think you can see that with, obviously, like the clothing and the hats and everything. And obviously with the podcast and the YouTube as well. And I said to you, you should do it. Like, you should go for it. And I remember you're a bit like, yeah, I'm really keen. And then you tried to get me on board as well. I remember you being like, we should both do it, man.
I was saying, let's do one together.
Yeah, like a white guy, a brown guy, both Muslim. Like, it would be so sick. And like, I just remember, like, for obviously a lot of people watching this is probably your first time that you've had exposure to me. But like, I'm quite a shy person.
Very shy.
I mean, Faisal knows. Getting me on here right now, speaking on a podcast in front of camera is a miracle. And I'm not going to lie, he might have coerced me slightly.
Maybe a bit.
I might have not even known I was doing this until I got here.
I know how much benefit you can bring, man, to the thing. And I know you're going to argue against that, but I think already the people can listen and realize that there's so much benefit. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Man. Yeah, and I think, I said to you, and he tried to get me to do it as well. So when you made your first YouTube video, you were saying, it was when you moved back to London, wasn't it?
You actually agreed to it.
I did.
You did because
I did. I'm not gonna lie. I was a bit flaky. I
remember we decided we were like, let's do a YouTube channel together.
Yeah.
And then you said, or we came across the problem that, oh well, you're going in a couple of months. You're going back to London.
Yeah, because I was like, you're going to London. And I'm in Cardiff. I was like, how are we going to do a YouTube channel together? It's going to be quite difficult.
And we were discussing potentially like making a bulk of videos every couple of weeks.
Yeah. Because I was like, maybe we could do 2 videos. But I think for me, ultimately, I think obviously quite shy, and I don't know if I was that comfortable about being that out there. So I think I was quite nervous about that. And I think obviously, the one thing I'll say about you is you never pressured me into doing it, but you were always quite, you were like, oh, it would be really good if we could do this together, but I understand if you don't want to do it. And I think obviously when you move back to London, unfortunately, man, like life takes over when you're working full time. I remember you, because you were with Apple then as well, weren't you, I think?
Yes.
Yeah, so I remember you started working at Apple. Because if you remember, I think we spoke on the phone, like after one of your first shifts. Because I was saying to you, like, because me and Faiz have been consistently saying, like, I'm going to come Cardiff and see you. And I was like, no, I'll come to London and see you. We were always organising a meetup. And, like...
It never happened.
Yeah. And I remember we spoke on the phone. It's probably one of the last times we had, like, proper contact. But I remember you saying, somehow this probably shows you how long ago it was. But Faiz was like, man, I think, like, there's a potential for marriage. And, my life is moving forward. Wow. And I'm starting YouTube now. I've bought, like, things to do vlogging. And I think you put up, if I remember correctly, one of your first videos, it was like something to do with like something to do with your nan, I think it was.
Yeah.
I remember you posted that video and you messaged me and was like, yo, like, I just posted on my video, like, go watch it, man, like, give me some support. And I watched it. I remember messaging you back and being like, yo, the video is really funny, man, I really like it. And I remember these are the times when it was on like 125 views.
Bro, I remember when we were,
do you know what I mean?
When we were in Cardiff, before I even started YouTube or anything, I remember obviously Snapchat was about then. I mean, I know
I'm still on Snapchat now, man.
Oh, man, I'm off that, man. But back then I was like really heavy on Snapchat, and I remember I used to get 60 views, 60, and I used to be like, oh my gosh.
Your Snapchat's gone mad quiet now. I still got him on Snapchat. I don't know if you know if he uses it.
I deleted it.
Say no more. You're still on my friend list.
Oh, really? And I used to get, I was getting 60 views. And I was like, oh, I'm getting 60 views. I'm getting big. Like, there's people watching me that don't know me.
I still get buzzed when I get 23 likes on Instagram. I'm not even going to lie to you.
I remember I used to like, because before on Instagram, when you got 11 likes, it would turn into a number rather than names.
Yeah. And I remember that.
I got 11 likes. I'm like, yes, I got 11 likes.
I remember those days. I remember those days, bro. Literally. 100%. And then I remember once before, this is quite sad actually. Please don't judge me. But I remember when I first started Instagram, because I was quite into my bodybuilding, wasn't I? I was into my training.
You still clearly are.
Oh, just act, bro.
Do you still train?
I still train, but You're
the most consistent gym person I think I've met.
Bro, the problem is staying natural, innit? Yeah. You got a limit, but especially with my genetics as well, you know what I mean? So I think, I've always had that kind of like consistency when it comes to the gym and stuff like that. And I think that's, to be honest with you, that applied into general life has always been a good thing, because I think when you take those principles, if you're quite, you're dedicated, I think that, and you're willing to put yourself out to achieve something or do something, like, for example, there's nothing worse than finishing a 13-14 hour shift in work and then driving home, it's pitch black, it's dark, and you're just thinking, Jim, really? Do I really want to do this? I'm up again in like 8 hours. I really don't want to go. But man, I think that's something that I think you can apply to your general life and even your deen as well, is that like you just gotta, even in times where you're not motivated, or because let's face it, man, especially when you come into your deen as well, like Iman is like a roller coaster ride. Sometimes you're really motivated, your deen is sky high, and then perhaps sometimes you're not so motivated, your deen is a little bit low, and that happens to everybody, I think. And that fluctuation, and I think even outside of deen, that happens to people in just their general everyday life, doesn't it? And I think sometimes when you've got that ability to push through and work hard and realize that, you know, you might be at a dip at the moment, but that'll change. I think that consistency is a good thing to apply to every element of your life. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
And I think it's similar to what you were saying. Like, you know, when you were first doing Snapchat, 60 views. Do you know what I mean?
11 likes on Instagram.
11 likes on your Instagram. And now look, man. I mean, what, you have like 30,000 followers on your Instagram? MashaAllah. I remember this is the thing, is that I just think you blew up all of a sudden. Because I remember you saying to me, like, watch this video and give me a like and a support. And you
knew it got bigger when I stopped messaging you.
That's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was.
I don't need Josh anymore. I'm fine.
Yo, his head swelled up, man. He went a bit crazy. Yeah. Like he did some mad stuff on me, innit? The ego kick. Now I'm joking. SubhanAllah. That's the one thing I say about you, man, is the ego is never.
Oh, God bless you, man.
Ego is not a thing for you, man. MashaAllah. Especially during the entire transition, you're still the same person. That's the thing, man. Like 3 years of not seeing you, and like as soon as I saw you in the entrance, because he
had a massive hug.
Man, he paid for me to get an Uber from the place that I'm staying to come here. By the way, like typical Cardiff boy, right? So like I know we have Uber in Cardiff, but I'm just like, yo, what is this technology?
Oh really?
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because you're like, because I booked you an Uber.
You're gonna abuse me for this.
I booked you an Uber, and you're like, okay, bro, but listen, what's your address, just in case like I get the wrong Uber? I'm like, bro, the Uber's gonna come pick you up and it will bring you here. You're like, yeah, but just in case, because there's loads of Faisals in London. I was like, bro, it takes technology, bro. Don't worry, just get in the Uber, he'll get you here.
The thing is, like, so I think obviously Cardiff, big city, small city mentality, isn't it? So I think nice, like, because I was saying to Faiz, like, when you're in Cardiff, you can walk from everywhere. You can walk everywhere, and like, even if worst case scenario, even if you need to get a bus or a train, like, it's not that complex. Do you get what I mean? I'm not saying London's complex, but to someone who's not got that or not spent that much time in London, like when you see the tube maps and you see all these like lines intertwining and stuff, I'm like, whoa. I don't know where I'm going. I don't want to get lost.
I've never taken public transport in Cardiff, not taken one bus, because I could literally walk from my house, and there was days I did so I'd walk from my house to my lecture, and then from my lecture I'd go to maybe the gym, and from the gym I'd go shopping in like St David's, and then from there I'd go maybe like I have to do some like get some stuff from Lidl or Tesco, and I'd walk, and all of that entire day I've just walked, and even that, like I've just walked in like one big circle. Do you know what I mean? Like from Tesco to my house in Cathay.
I think as a student in Cardiff, like you have a pretty like central area, don't you? Like Cathay's in Cardiff is pretty peak for students, isn't it? Like loads of students are there, and I think like because of that, like you have Lidl, Tesco, Sainsbury's. You have pretty much Cardiff Uni like right on your doorstep as well. So as a result, like you never really have to venture like away from that. Do you know what I mean? Like you have your little bubble, and that's
what
fine.
You need, yeah.
Yeah, New Town is next to
it actually took me a long time to like adjust back to London, because I was so used to Cardiff. And I remember when I first got married, I used to say to my wife, like, how do you feel about moving to Cardiff?
MashaAllah on the marriage, by the way.
Jazakallah khair.
He kept that one quiet.
No, I did I?
Nah, for me,
oh,
you kept it quiet.
I think I did actually. I think I kept it quiet for everyone, because I think a lot of people were surprised. But
to be fair, so to give a background on that, I just remember that when Faisal was working for Apple, I think you rang me and you said that, because I remember when me and you were in uni, like I think obviously being young guys, we were like, bro, 100%. Deep marriage talks as well, like, bro, I need to get married, like now. Yeah, that was just so like, I need to get married. And to be honest with you, subhanAllah, it was probably for the wrong reasons. So I'm not going to even lie to you. I'm not going to even lie to you.
Do you know what I remember? I can't say it on mic. I don't know what you want me to and not say it on mic, so I won't say it.
Nah, what are you going to drop? Nah. I'm a bit nervous now. I'm not going to lie to you.
I was about to say that. I remember we were talking about marriage talks. I was like, okay, so like, you know, when you get married, like, who, like, I think I must ask you that. Do you want to get married to like a white reaver or what? And told me your type, and I was like, okay.
Say no more. I know where you're going with that one.
But yeah, so it was nice to know that You want to marry outside your culture?
Yeah, for sure.
We'll leave it there. But all right, so bro, before because I do also definitely want to go into your job and your field because I think there's a lot of benefit in that. But one thing I know about you, and I suppose anyone who knows you personally knows, is that you're very, very close to your family and you love your family and your family loves you.
Proper mama's boy, man. I ain't even ashamed to admit.
And you're very close to your little sister.
Yeah, for sure. Although she's not so little anymore, man. She's 18.
Wow, subhanallah.
I know.
So how was it telling them that you become Muslim? Did they know? Did they know during the build-up that you were interested in it? And what's your relationship been like with them since? Because it seems from the outside like it's always been great, has been great, and inshallah will continue to be great. May Allah bless you and your family.
Yeah, I think.
So what's it been like?
Thank you. I think so. For me, like I said, my mum's very, very liberal. Like I said earlier, and there was never. It's quite sad when I speak to some other people. And they've had. Perhaps difficulties, like whether it be from misconceptions of family members or anything like that. It's quite sad to hear, but I think I've been very lucky because my mum was always so relaxed, so understanding, and she knew, because obviously when I came home from the gym that night, I was like, I'm going to the mosque, and she was like, why are you going to the mosque for? And I was like, I've been looking into it a bit more, and she was like, oh, okay, that's fine, you do your thing. Like I said, because my family is so liberal, they were just kind of like my mum, brother and sister and everyone, they've got that mentality of like, if it makes you happy, do it.
But was there not a period of time when they were worried about you?
Not really, no. I think it's because my mum knows that I'm a very level-headed person. I'm not somebody to jump into things. I'm very, very cautious. Like as a person, I'm quite anxious. So I don't ever do anything without thinking of all the possible scenarios. Do you see what I mean? Like when I do anything, when I go anywhere, I think what could go wrong, what could happen. Like that's just how I am as a person. And I think she knows that I would never make a rash decision. So she knows that, there was a gradual transition. I was always open with her. I said like, I've been quite interested in looking more into religion and stuff like that. So she knew the entire time that it was something I was interested in. My brother was living out at the time, and I think he's similar thing. Like my brother's like, if it makes you happy, just do what you want. I don't think he fully understands why I'm Muslim, because he does, he's your stereotypical, white British. Not that, not there's anything wrong with that, but like I think he's very, very much, he's quite atheist, so he doesn't really understand.
But has your relationship with him changed?
Not at all.
And he's respectful of the fact that you're Muslim.
100%.
That's amazing.
There's the occasional jokes where he's like, do you want a beer after a long hard day at work?
Right.
But he's obviously, it's not like
to be expected somewhat, right?
Yeah.
What about your mom and stuff?
Like my mum always goes, do you want a pork sandwich?
Oh really?
Yeah. But like it's all a joke.
Would she cook halal meat in the house and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And
well,
how did it go? How did you explain to her, look, mum, I want to eat look, when you buy food for me, can you make sure it's halal?
So I think for me, actually, I'm quite lucky because we live opposite an Asda in Cardiff.
And does halal meat?
It's got halal butchers,
okay,
yeah.
Okay.
So my mum was just kind of like, if you want halal meat, just go buy it. That's fine.
Fine.
Or, like obviously the only exception really that makes it a bit difficult is pork, isn't it?
Yeah.
But like apart from my mum who has the occasional bacon sandwich, like no one in my family really eats it anyway. So
what about
my
alcohol?
sister's a strict veggie. No one really drinks. My brother has the occasional if he's had a really long day at work, but we never really have any in the house, to be honest. So I think he's got like a thing of Jack Daniels in his room that he hasn't touched for about 6 years.
Okay.
And he uses it as a lamp now because he put the Jack Daniels out and put a light in it. It looks pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think. I mean, obviously, there's the occasional thing where, like, you'll go to... So, for example, one of our family members got married, and it was during Ramadan, and they made food, obviously, at, like, 6 o'clock, but couldn't break fast until about, like, 8:30. And Mum was like, come on, it's a special occasion. Like, you can... And graduation as well. When I graduated from uni, it was in the middle of Ramadan, and my mum was just like, can you not fast today and have, a family... like, family meal for your graduation? I just think it's education. Like I was just like, nah, obviously fasting is really important. And my mum was like, that's fine.
I think it's amazing because...
But she was like, she literally said though, she was like, that's fine. But like all the family are coming down. So we're all going to go out for food. You could just come and sit with us. I was like, all right, okay, fair.
No, but do you know what's amazing? What's amazing is that you are clearly giving off a great perspective, a great image of Islam, because you're not being... You're not saying, how dare you insinuate that I shouldn't fast? Do you know that it's fard to fast in Ramadan? But you're just saying...
But your manner with people, it makes a huge difference how do people accept it.
But bro, that's what people perhaps don't understand. Like for you to turn around and be like, you know what, no... like, Mum, I really appreciate you saying that, but it's just really important to me.
Yeah, that's what I mean. All I did was say, I'm really sorry, man, but obviously, like, fasting is something that we do, and I don't want to not fast for that reason. And she was like, that's fine. Like, she's so, man, that's the thing.
And it's really cool that you still went to the family, you know.
Oh yeah, I still went to the dinner, and I sat there while everyone was eating las iguanas, pretty much wanting to cry. Because the chicken there is halal as well, I think. Yeah. So I was pretty much sat there like.
When you guys got family meals and stuff, do they like?
We just go to halal places, yeah. Well, my sister's a vegetarian, so like if we go anywhere, we usually look for good veggie options. So worst case scenario, I just have a vegetarian meal. Do you know what I mean? I do find it sometimes a bit difficult. I'm not gonna lie. McDonald's, man.
Because you're obviously like, used to having...
Bro, Big Macs, man.
See, for someone like me, because I never had like a Big Mac or McDonald's before, other than in like Dubai or something, that wasn't probably...
That's the thing. That's the thing. I've never traveled to an Arab country as well. So like,
we have to go to Dubai together.
Bro, 100%. 100%. Let's not make this like a typical London meetup where it takes 4 years for it to happen.
Yeah, no, bro, let's do it, man.
Nah, I'm definitely quite keen.
I'd love to go to Dubai with you, man.
No, I'm keen for that. 100%. I'd quite like that.
We'll go chill with Tim Humble.
Yeah, nice. Let's do it, man.
So, okay, what about stuff like girlfriends and stuff? Like, do they wonder like why you don't have a girlfriend?
So yeah, so I think
because you're 25, and I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's normal to be in a relationship.
Yeah, I think.
At 25.
Well, the thing is, I think my mum, my brother, and my sister, so my close family, and even like my good friends and stuff, like they all know the score. Like I said, growing up in Cardiff, like a lot of my friends are perhaps like, you know, well, a lot of my friends are Muslim. I obviously have loads of non-Muslim friends as well, but because they're exposed to Islam, they understand the concept. Like a lot of, and obviously, like I said, I went to a church in Wales school, although there wasn't that many overly religious people. I grew up with quite a few strict Christian friends as well. So like everyone knows, like, you know, what the rulings are and what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, etc., etc. So I think like my family knew that anyway. And like, you know, my mum says like, you know, you're 25. I think it's weird because like a lot of the times when I speak to my friends who are perhaps 25 and not married, like everyone says like, oh, like especially like my Bengali, Pakistani friends or my Arab friends, like they're like, yo, my mum's putting so much pressure on me to get married. Like she's like, you need to get married. Whereas like if I go to my mum now and I'm like, I want to get married, she's like, you're 25. Yeah, like, chill out. Like relax. You need to enjoy your life first. Like, do you know experience. What?
Like, I guarantee that after this episode,
oh, don't drop those bars. Don't drop those bars.
Why? Because every time we have a guest on Freshly Grounded, bro, that is not married, bro, we get inundated with emails saying, look, this is this brother looking for marriage?
No, don't drop that, man. Don't drop that.
And I don't ever know how to deal with those inquiries. And so 9 times out of 10, look, if it's something that it looks like a serious email, I often will say to the brother, look, I got this email, but I don't want to just start having like conversation with people.
Well, it becomes your Freshly Grounded becomes a marriage organisation.
I tend not to reply, not in a rude way, but
no, that's
yeah. Unless the brother has said, "Yo, yeah."
I think the thing is as well is that you know.
I'm just saying we're gonna get those emails after this episode.
I doubt it, man. I doubt it. No. Especially because I just think for me, man, like. Try not to rush it. You know, I'm 25. I'm still relatively quite young.
But and
I think as well, like, unfortunately, when you're a revert, you do, if we're being 100% honest, you do face roadblocks when it comes to getting married as well. You know, you do have some families that perhaps, you know, I'm saying from personal experience and also from other people's experience as well, perhaps whether ethnicity becomes an issue, or you do get that age-old like, oh, he's a revert, he might leave the religion. It's like, subhanAllah, do you think that born Muslim can't leave the religion? Like, do you seriously think that that's not a possibility as well?
And like I said kind of before off mic, it's also the fact that it's not like you're a Muslim and you've been a Muslim for 6 months.
7 years down now, bro.
Yeah, 7 years, bro.
7 years, yeah.
That's a big deal, bro. Like you know, you don't look at... I wouldn't look at you as Josh and be like, oh, that's Josh, like, the revert. It's just, you're Muslim. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, I do find that interesting. Let's discuss slightly your work.
Well, I mean...
So what did you study at uni in Cardiff?
So I studied dietetics.
You studied dietetics, which is...
Yeah, so at the moment I'm working as a pediatric dietitian in the NHS.
Okay.
So, I mean, the role varies significantly depending on obviously what specialty you work in, but you just work along the medical team and you help from that point of view. I think the NHS has always been something that I always wanted to work in because when I was when I was younger, I always knew I wanted a career that was going to help people. Just because I always thought about like public sectors, whether it's like police officer or fire service or anything along those types of lines. That's always where I wanted to go. So I think it was a natural transition for me in terms of the fact that like I knew that I wanted to go into something that was going to be healthcare based. You see what I mean?
You're always very conscious since I've known you of your health and your diet anyway. Obviously that probably comes part and parcel with going to the gym and being a regular there.
Yeah. Oh, the interesting thing I think is that like diet now is such a big thing for a lot of people, isn't it? Because obviously everyone knows about the impact diet has on your long-term health as well. And I think a lot of people perhaps are becoming a bit more aware of that now. You know, if you're, especially when, you know, we've got an aging population. So I think that your lifestyle choices in your youth impact your health when you're older, isn't it? So I think that now people are starting to clock onto that. It's becoming a bigger topic for a lot of people. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of people are more aware of it now.
Definitely. There's a massive like increase in health awareness. So what's
enough about me, man. Like I need to be updated about you because
this is freshly grounded with Joshua Dickens. Not freshly grounded
but what you've got to remember is though, right? Is that, you know, this is the first time that I've seen you in like 3 years.
It's true.
So update me about you. I want to hear about you, man. It's enough about me. We've been talking for like God knows how long about me. Give me some updates on you.
Bro, with me, there's really nothing new.
Oh, look how shy he gets now.
There isn't though, bro.
Look how shy he gets now.
There really... Because you probably... I mean, you know of the things that are new. Alhamdulillah, I'm married now. I wasn't married before. Last time we met each other, I wasn't even a married man. SubhanAllah.
This is what I mean. So this is how long it's been. Is that he wasn't even married when I saw you last.
And we were so close, like back then. It's nice to know that we have been able to have that kind of relationship where as soon as we meet again, it's like we've not only met yesterday. It's like we only saw each other again. As in, like, it doesn't feel like a big space, a big gap or anything. Yeah. But with that being said, I think that I need to make some more effort with like keeping in contact as well.
That's very true.
But yeah,
you look at the camera for that. You can hold him to that because it's terrible, man. For sure.
Yeah, but to be honest, bro, honestly, there's not much more new, man. Like my day in day out, I'm here at the studio. And just trying to push forward, man. Do you know what I mean?
MashaAllah, the clothing brand as well, man.
Yeah, but do you know what? I've slowed down a lot on that, and I've been like,
you know, I still got the Izaha top at home.
Because I started Izaha in uni, didn't I?
Yeah.
Oh, so you got that one?
Yeah. Wow. You gave me a t-shirt and a hat.
No way.
Yeah, they're still in my house.
Wow.
Yeah, man. You gave me a t-shirt and a hat. I think this must have been like one of the first t-shirts you ever printed.
No way.
Yeah, for sure. Because I remember you saying like, yo, bro, like I'm starting a new clothing company. Like it's an interest of mine. Like, would you be interested? And I was like, yeah. I'll buy a top off you. Yeah, I was like, I'll buy a top off you, man. I was like 100%. Just literally send it my way. Nice of you, man. Yeah, and I remember
I'm just going to go turn the camera back.
Yeah. Because you, I think you gave me like this, I think it was a t-shirt, man. And then you gave me a hat as well, similar to the hats that are over there. I've got a black one that's got the logo on it as well. And I remember just thinking like, wow, like, you know, it was nice stuff, man. Like, to be fair, I was quite impressed. I was quite impressed because I was like, obviously it's the first thing you'd ever done. Like the first thing you ever printed. The logo was cool, like the look was cool.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive.
Oh, no, I appreciate that, man.
Nah.
There's been like, it's tough because obviously with one in a clothing company, you can imagine that like, unfortunately, buying and selling has become a very old school way of making money nowadays. Yeah. As you can imagine, you're buying product, you're marking the price up, you're selling it, and your packaging is very labor intensive. And we're living in an age now where technology is ruling the world, and where to make, for example, even £100, forget talking in the thousands, to make £100 selling hats, you know, what goes into making £100 is, first of all, ordering hats, paying for them up front, getting them in, paying the tax on that. Yeah. Once they're here, trying to market them and sell them. And then let's say you're selling the hats for £20 and they cost you, for example, £10. Then you have to sell 10 hats to make £100 profit. And to sell 10 hats, you might sell them in drips and drabs. Yeah. And then you have to package each one. You have to do the packaging.
It's a lot of work, isn't it?
It's all of that.
It's just very labor intensive, right? Like you said.
Whereas in the tech industry, you're not even talking in the hundreds of pounds. You're talking. The discussion doesn't even start there. The discussion starts in the thousands anyway, and it's a lot less labor intensive because people are paying for services. It's a service based industry.
Yeah.
So let's say for example,
MashaAllah, I saw the Amazon influencer as well.
Yeah,
MashaAllah.
Yeah, they verified me as an influencer, which was amazing.
I saw. I think I saw you. Did you? I think you posted about it. I think recently, isn't it?
Yeah,
Literally
like 2 days ago. They verified me like 2 days ago.
Yeah. So I saw it and I was like, wow.
Yeah, man. Alhamdulillah.
My boy is making moves.
Nah, man.
Man, do you know what's funny, right? Is like I'm the really shy one, and as soon as you said like let's do a podcast and let's film it, like obviously I was so nervous and like I was like, oh no, I don't want to do it. And as soon as I talk about your successes, you get so shy.
But do you know what it is? So the other day, I was in this shop and I was buying some vegetables for Omar because we were at my sister's house and he said, look bro, can you pick me up a few things I want to cook, because he's really into cooking. And so I was like, alright, cool. So I went to the shop in this area that I'm not normally in, and this guy, I'm like in the vegetable area trying to select some vegetables from this market, and this guy comes up to me, he's like, yo assalamu alaikum bro. I didn't even click that he was Muslim. And he comes up to me and he's like, assalamu alaikum bro, just wanted to say like I love Fresh Uganda. He's like, I'm listening to it right now.
Really?
He had it on in his ears.
Wow, that's crazy.
And bro, the feeling that gave me, it made me so happy because, and it felt so different because the very few times, and it didn't happen often, the very few times that maybe I was in a masjid or something in the past and someone would stop me and say, oh, I watch your YouTube videos, I love them. I always just feel this horrible feeling that I didn't enjoy it. Like, it was like, I feel a bit embarrassed in front of Allah that I like that this person's telling me that they watch my videos, because it feels like your ego is growing a bit, which is not nice.
Yeah.
But bro, we're freshly grounded. When someone's like, yo bro, listen, I listen to Freshly Grounded, I love it, I genuinely feel so happy and I don't feel that guilt. And I honestly believe it's because I feel like, not because of me, but because of the guests that I have on, that people are able to say benefit from Freshly Grounded. And I also feel like Freshly Grounded feels like a thing where it's like I'm sincerely doing it for the sake of Allah, to bring people closer to Allah's religion in whatever way they can. If it means that they stop listening to music because they listen to the podcast instead, if it means that they start reflecting on, just like for example you're here now and you know, discussing your story, and we're discussing how to be soft with your family, and maybe that makes them think, wow, I need to be more soft with my family, and that kind of stuff makes me so happy because it's not based on Faisal Chowdhury, it's based on me interviewing a guest, and that feels a lot more purer. And so that's what I love doing Freshly Grounded. I guess I'm going off on a bit of a tangent because you said
I wanted to hear about you.
Yeah, man. So we did lose the tangent slightly on your job, and I do really want to know, because your job really focuses on diet. I'm intrigued to know, like, what is like a general day at the hospital for you?
So
because you haven't got a normal office job.
Nah. So you work on the ward or you just do outpatient clinic. So it depends on what is scheduled for you on that day. So it depends if you get a ward referral, you go to the ward. If you're doing outpatient clinic, so if the scheduled clinics, then you'll be doing the clinic. So it just varies from that to that. Obviously,
do you give diet advice?
Not necessarily. Okay. No, it's more to do with like, I guess, well, it's hard to describe because you deal with so many different types of patients and stuff, so yeah, it varies from day to day, and I think the types of patients you see vary from day to day, and that's why it's quite interesting, I think. And I think you know, just I think part of me, when I was thinking about what job I wanted to do, because, you know, I think I went through the same crisis that every 17, 18-year-old kid does when you're picking your A-levels, and they always tell you like, oh, your choices don't make that much of a difference, but then like when you go to apply for uni, it's like, oh, you can't do this because you didn't do maths A-level, or you can't do this because you didn't do this, or you can't do this because you didn't do that, and then you start to think like, well, actually no, it does make quite a big difference. So I did physics, biology and chemistry, don't ask me why.
Wow.
And yeah, so I always knew I wanted to do something sciencey, and something that was going to be quite interesting, something that was going to change on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's what worked for me. But then obviously thinking about you specifically, like if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm really sorry if I get it wrong.
We're both just trying
criminology, right?
We're both just trying to throw the conversation onto the other one.
Nah, man,
Let's talk about you. Let's talk about you.
No, the thing is, it's because what you've got to remember is the last time me and you proper caught up. Like,
yeah, it was years ago. Yeah.
You did what, criminology? Wasn't
I studied criminology. Yeah.
Yeah. So last time I spoke to you, you were like, I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure what I want to do.
I would never imagine Allah would bring me into marketing.
That's what I mean. So like it's a big transition. That's why I'm always trying to get the conversation onto you, because I think if anything, I'm kind of like intrigued as well, because obviously it's been a while. And I dare say as well, like you said, is that you do, when you have podcasts, you do speak a lot about perhaps the guests and what they're doing, but also, man, it's a good opportunity for you to speak as well. Get people who listen to you week in, week out, to get a bit more of an understanding of your story as well, which I think is good.
Nah, of course I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that, and yeah, like you said, studying criminology, I had no idea what I was doing, and I went to university with the intention of caring what I study, and so the reason I found university so great was because of the experiences that I had out there, and stuff like meeting brothers like yourself, stuff like finding Allah and that kind of stuff. And I was just telling you off camera as well that one of the most amazing things is that when I was out in Cardiff, that's obviously where I started becoming closer to the Dean, and I got really close to Sheikh Yaqub as you know, the Imam of Darul Isra. And I remember I did my second itikaf in Darul Isra.
I remember you doing that. You with Perry, wasn't you? I think. No. That was in Al Manar. I'm thinking of somebody else. You did it in DUI. Yeah, and I remember coming for Tarawih pretty much every night, and I bought you some food and didn't I?
You bought me some food
because you were like, because I remember you said, bro, no disrespect like to the cook, but I've had enough of mosque food.
Do you know what it was? It was lamb and rice every day,
bro. Always lamb and rice.
It was lamb and rice every single day, and I was like, I can't do lamb and rice anymore, please,
bro. I remember. So obviously since being Muslim and meeting quite a lot of people of different ethnicities, like I've only been to 3 weddings.
No way.
Yeah, I've only been to 3 weddings.
Guys, invite this man to your weddings. You need to experience an Afghan wedding.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm only gonna come for the food though.
Yeah, but bro, do you know what? Afghan weddings are really nice, man. Are really cool. I've been to 2 Afghan weddings recently, and the food is great, and the energy and the people is really nice, man. I've obviously been to countless Pakistani weddings, and
see, I've only been to 1, but that was quite interesting.
I've heard that Egyptian weddings. I've been to an Algerian wedding.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but I've heard that Egyptian weddings are really cool. I think someone told me that, maybe my wife or something. But yeah, it's really interesting how different cultures do weddings. You have you being the posh self that you are, you have an event with the NHS about very soon.
Well, very soon, yes.
Yeah, I know you have to leave soon. So why don't we round up the podcast now, and we can have a bit of a discussion off air and stuff.
For sure. Well. Yeah, no.
And then we'll sort you out. You'll get back to the event. So, bro, Jazakallah khair for coming down. I really
That's okay.
It.
Honestly, thank you for having me.
Amazing to catch up with you, man. Like seeing you after so many years. Let's please stay in contact. Let's make that trip to Dubai happen.
To be fair, right? So if you post this or if you put it up on any social media, I want people to put so much pressure on you to make sure that you do actually.
The Dubai trip?
No, not the Dubai trip. Oh. Like, I need you to post up trip to Cardiff in like a month's time. So when it goes on social media and people hear the podcast and people are like, yo, they talked about going to Cardiff. I want people to hold you accountable.
Well, I want people to drop you a message and let you know that you benefited. Because I know that you're very shy. You're very shy about the podcast, and you didn't know if it was going to be good for you to do the podcast. So I want, if you guys listen to this episode and you found benefit in it, do let Josh know, let us know as well.
And it's because I think for me, like, I'm quite a private person, so when people ask me like personal questions, I'm like even so when I'm close to someone, obviously I tell them, but like when it comes to like just people perhaps loosely or stuff like that, I'm not really that much of an open person. I'm quite private. So I think like going on a podcast and talking about like my experience about becoming Muslim, my work, etc., like obviously I'm quite shy, so I'm a bit like not too sure. As you can see, probably ducking a few questions here and there.
Yeah, I've definitely seen you ducking a few questions.
I've been ducking.
So guys, let's talk about you.
It's probably just
but I do appreciate you coming down, honestly.
No, honestly, thank you so much for having me here, man. It's been a pleasure.
You're always more than welcome. As Omar said, you're always more than welcome in the studio. You're always more than welcome.
I still need to meet some of the other brothers as well, because like
obviously you just missed Nate. Nate took a shahada in January. It would have been amazing for you to meet him.
Yeah, there's so many people that you have on your podcast, and I'm like, because when I watch it, or if I listen to your podcast or whatever, like, and I get to know some of the people, and I'm like, it'd be so interesting to meet this person. To be honest with you, it's a bit of a shame because obviously it was quite short notice. I think I messaged you like 3-4 days ago to be like, I'm going to be in London. Are you around? So I think it was quite like short notice, wasn't it? But
I think it's also nice that the first time we caught up in so long that we caught up like together,
for sure,
rather than like me being like, oh hey, come meet all these people, like people that you'd really get along with. So yeah, man, awesome, cool. Thank you so much for jumping on the podcast.
That's all right. Guys, thank you so much for having me.
This was Fresh and Grounded episode 80, I believe. Woo! The 80th episode. He was Joshua Dickens.
Yep.
I was Faisal Chowdhury, and we're out.